Hello.
Hey,
Good,
everyone.
very wonderful morning.
Hi.
Um, we just want to
Hi,
see.
Jeanette.
I,
Yeah, if we could just get our normal, quick little,
it looks like Geneva's here at least.
yeah, but if we could get like a quick hi that you can hear us or a thumbs up or hello or yes. Any number of different.
So we can see the
Just make
yes,
sure. Yep. Thank you.
yep. Good, amazing. Hello.
Thanks, guys.
The first thing, practical thing I want to
Yes.
say that we need to get out of the way because we will forget.
Yes.
It is, remember, next week on Tuesday we have our inquiry group, but on Sunday wintertime starts in Europe and in the UK. So it doesn't start in the US.
No.
We're a bit slow. We're a bit behind here. It doesn't start until the 3rd of November here.
Yeah.
So remember, on Tuesday we're meeting here at 12 o'clock Eastern time, like it is right now, which will be 5 o'clock European time and 4 o'clock UK time.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So just remember that. And then the week after, to make everything complicated, then we're back. The US have caught up, and we then have winter time.
Back to normal time.
So it's just
darker.
a head up. Yeah, heads up. No lighter, isn't it? When it's back.
No,
it should be lighter now. If it's back, then it's only 11 o'clock here now.
No, it gets darker. That's why everybody hates the winter, because it's like so much. It gets dark here at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be dark days coming.
Yeah. Yeah, because now it would be 11 o'clock, so we wouldn't be meeting until an hour.
We're not eating until.
Yeah. It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to see you guys are here.
Delight to have you too, Patty.
So nice.
To be here and not here.
Yeah. Yeah. We got lots of questions on Discord.
We do.
On Discord, if you can't participate on the live Q&As here on Fridays, then you can write your question on Discord in the thread that is called live Q&A. We do prioritize the people that are here live. So we have lots and lots of questions on Discord ready. And if you guys that are here now with us live, if you have questions or if something we say that you would like to expand on, then just write in the comment section.
Yeah. Amazing. And Grace said hi from Seattle. I love the winter. Yeah. Isn't it like in Seattle though? You guys like never get light, right? Isn't it like dark and overcast like all year round, 24 hours a day?
Sounds like all year round. It can't be all year round. It's like Denmark, but Denmark is amazing in the summer.
Little England. It's like it's just like overcast all the time.
Yeah, in England that's true. That's true. Even in the summer it's raining. Yeah. Okay.
Feel free to correct me, Grace.
We just offended everyone from Seattle
and England.
In one swoop.
Yeah, we're very efficient.
You're welcome.
Here. We're very efficient. To be fair, I've never actually been to Seattle, so I only hear rumors. But
the rumors, the grapevine, the American grapevine about
it is.
Seattle.
It is. Everybody knows. Okay. So Cleona has a question.
Yes.
I see a high number of posts on social media about narcissism, how to recover from narcissistic abuse, etc., go quite viral. I was wondering which fetters this could possibly link to about ourselves and our projection on others. Our helplessness with boundaries? I'm so curious about this. Aren't we all kind of slightly narcissistic, if not unfettered, as we are self-referential by nature? Though narcissism is a judgmental word, please skip if you think this question won't be useful to the majority. I think it's relevant now.
It's a super good question. It's a really good question. There is, yeah. I don't really know where to start. The first thing about it is that there is, because of the internet and because of social media, it's so easy to share your story and to connect with other people. I have found that in the autistic community that it's so nice to be able to reach out and and connect with other late diagnosed autists out there, especially women, since we are in a group, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. So it's wonderful that we are able to connect like that online, which we haven't been before. And that also goes when you are a survivor of anything, cancer, anything, emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse. So you hear a lot about it. I do think that there's the the focus that is on narcissistic abuse is immensely important. And because when you experience narcissistic abuse, what happens in it is that in the first period you get what is called love bombed, that you're gonna get appreciated and reassured and loved, and it's not only by a romantic partner, it's also by a friendship or by a boss or anything, that you feel amazing, you feel worthy, and you feel loved in a way that you never ever felt before. And that is basically the first red flag. Um, what happens after that, when you feel that love and that connection, is that you want to achieve that again. But what the narcissist does, and their whole ruse, is that that minus feeling that you go into when you do not feel loved, when you not, and that craving that you have for it, is what they're feeding on. So they will keep telling you that you're not worth anything and that you are stupid, and then you will try to get back into the good graces. And that happens. We saw a really good YouTube documentary, How I Created a Cult.
Yeah, about Andrew Cohen.
And about Andrew Cohen. And it's really fascinating to watch because he's clearly narcissistic, and you can see the way that he's playing people against one another and how they are trying to get into his good graces all the time. We went to, I don't want to mention name, the one we went to in Woodstock.
Yeah.
We went to an event in Woodstock with a guru as well. And it was the same thing, that there was that everybody that was following that guru was bending themselves backwards to be noticed and to receive love and to receive. And it was so clearly narcissistic abuse, that what they're trying to do is to get back into that first fix and that first feeling. And you can experience that with a partner or with a colleague or with a friend or anything. The problem with it is that you're never ever going to get that again. And that is why you're hooked. And it's why it's so difficult to get out of any narcissistic relationship, because you do feel that if you do better, then they will love you. You will receive that acknowledgement that you're so hungry after getting, and you completely forget yourself in that. And that makes you do things that you would never ever do under normal circumstances. It's also, you go into a position where you start to defend the narcissist, even though you have no skin in the game whatsoever, which makes it possible for the narcissist to continue. So it's a super, super toxic situation, and I'm really happy that we have so much information about it. I do also think that it's important to differentiate between what is pathological narcissism and what is just an asshole. Because there is a difference. There is a difference. And I think that in the patriarchal society that we have a huge group of white, privileged, entitled men that are used to getting everything their way because they're white men. And that is basically it. They don't need to work extra in the workforce. Black people do, especially Black women do. Women in general do. So it's like there's like this entitlement about men that is so interesting to hear about. And if you know anybody that is trans man, it's so interesting to speak with them, because they can talk about how it was to grow up like a woman and how they have been treated their entire life. And as soon as they started to grow a beard and have hairy body and wear caps and flannel shirts, and the entire society treated them completely different. Suddenly they were not interrupted anymore. Suddenly, they were heard whenever they had any opinion about anything, even though it was not really anything intelligent. They would be like, raised above a woman that would be, for example, in a meeting, that would have, great pointers. um and that is just part of that patriarchy, white male entitled privilege. And they're just assholes. They're not narcissists. They're assholes. They might act in the sense of narcissism because they are entitled. They are self-referential. What do you mean you don't want to bring me a cup of coffee? You always brought me a cup of coffee. Why don't you want to bring me a cup of coffee? Why can't I pinch your bum all of a sudden? What is the matter with all this wokeness that we have? That's just them being an asshole. But they can be educated. They can be educated. They might be stubborn and don't want to and all of that, but they can be educated. And narcissists cannot see they're doing anything wrong. We have that with CEOs and billionaires and political figures, and we have that so much in the media right now that it's so clear to see the difference between an asshole and a narcissist, because the one can be educated, the other one, it's never ever going to happen, because they cannot see that they are doing anything wrong. You're the one in the wrong. You're the one in the wrong. So I think it's important to differentiate. If you have, I'm just getting told that please clarify that not all white males are assholes. Come on, guys, you know that. I'm sitting here with the love of my life. He's not an asshole, but I do think you can say more about that. I do think if you are a white male, you're born with a privilege and you're born with an entitlement that you need to look into, because otherwise you will be an asshole without knowing it. It's just like, I'm born white. I need to look into the privilege that I'm not even aware of that I have because I'm white. So I'm not saying that all whites are racist, but we do need to look into it. I mean, I've never been asked when I have boarded a plane, got up and standing in line when it's first class boarding first. Nobody ever look at me and go like, no, you're not yet, without looking at my ticket. Black people experience that all the time. That it's just assumed that they're not flying first class and they're in the wrong lane. So just like we as white people need to really acknowledge that there is a systemic racism that we need to look into, we need to acknowledge, if I don't think it's a problem, it's a problem. It's the same with white males. And you can talk more about that, because you have done a lot of work not to end up in where everything you came from was
my education, or well, not my actual education, but the family life, that the people around me that were providing those early role models and guidance very much would have led me down that really awful path of white racist misogyny. Yeah, I mean, it was really bad when you look back at the actual influences that I had growing up. And it's kind of miraculous I still don't know exactly how it happened. I mean, something around the high school time really shifted in a way where all of a sudden I was able to start seeing things from a very different perspective than I had before. I still don't know exactly. I mean, I had friends who would push back on things that I said or that I had been hearing, but I don't know exactly how that kind of shift happened. But thankfully, we are malleable enough that when we do have other influences coming in, we are able to take in new information and change and update and become better in that way.
Yeah.
But like, again, I've said this multiple times, I'm really fortunate, and I'm grateful that I have grown up seeing both sides of virtually every political issue or social issue, where I know what it's like to feel and to believe something, and then to be able to flip and feel and believe the exact opposite thing. And it really puts us in that perspective, or gives the perspective that every belief that we have is just some more or less unfounded position that we have just kind of locked into for one reason or another, and all of it is up for question. And so I know it's not exactly what we were talking about, but it's something that points in that direction, that we really have to stay open to anything that we lock into, anything that we've been taught and
but it's exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
That if I don't see, I'm white, and if I don't see me being a racist in any way, and there's not a problem at all, I need to look at that, because that's an underlying belief that Black people around me tell me all the time. It is a fucking systemic problem. So I need to acknowledge that there's something I'm not open about. And that is the case. If you're a white man, you systemically have benefits that you need to acknowledge. And racism can only end by white people speaking up, just like misogyny and the patriarchy can only end if men speak up. Yeah.
I was going to say, with the, at the risk of going into more political territory, I think that one of the
You're
reasons
just going to see people jump off. Boop, 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 boop.
But I think one of the reasons why, because like Cleona asked, why is it we see this all of a sudden? And like in the US, I know we didn't really hear much about narcissism until 2016.
Yeah.
And it was really, I don't know if Trump is a malignant narcissist, but if he's not, he does a really good impersonation of one. And so I think when he was running, we started hearing everywhere, this is what narcissism looks like. These are the hallmarks of a narcissist. And then people who had never heard of such a thing were able to start looking around their lives and go, oh, that's like my father. It's like, oh, I recognize this. And so a lot of people started getting educated on narcissism just because of the political situation at the time. And then for those of us who lived through 4 years of that, for many of us, it was like 4 years of narcissistic abuse, of having a lot of these things.
Waking up in the morning and not knowing what the fuck has happened during the night.
Yeah.
What repercussions do we need to hear about all? And I was in Europe at the time and looking at the outside, and it was bizarre knowing how the narcissistic dynamic is in a family, where there's a narcissist, there's an enabler, and then there's scapegoats. And seeing from Europe how the entire country here was divided into that, into the narcissist, the enablers, and the scapegoats. And that is basically how a family is run, or a company is run, or a country is run.
Yeah. So it was kind of like we had sort of a collective taste of it. And I think it sparked a lot of the traumas that people had who actually had narcissistic upbringing.
Yeah.
That's like, this is, very, very familiar. And then probably we also run into that thing where anytime something kind of becomes to the mainstream, people are also easily led to exaggerating it, or like you said, there's a difference between a narcissist and just like a general asshole. And so because now narcissism became a word in the vernacular, that I think it just became one of those things that's really easy to just paint everybody.
You don't want to pick me up at 5 o'clock at the airport. You're such a narcissist.
Totally.
No,
so it's
not
one
really.
of those things, right? So it's one of those things where I think we've been, in one hand, educated more than we were about it, and on the other, it's also in sometimes just being overly used as just
misused.
it's just a hallmark for or a label for anybody who is at all self-involved in any way, or doesn't seem to be overly altruistic.
Yeah.
And it is true, like Cleona, like you said, we all have that sort of self-referential internal narcissistic streak when we're not living from that awakened, non-identified place. It just is very much still, everything revolves around me. My impersonation, or my interpretation of what somebody else is saying in a conversation is all about me. I'm interpreting how they think about me, what they're saying, how that relates to me, how, everything in the political spectrum is referring to me and my beliefs and what I'm afraid is going to happen to my life going forward, and all of this. So we do have that sort of core of constant self-referential concern when we are operating out of that.
And I just want in a bracket just to say that a very distinct difference between a narcissist and an asshole is that a narcissist is constantly seeking after narcissistic fuel, and the narcissistic fuel come from somebody that feels like shit. So they have a tendency to put other people down so they feel better. They need to stand up. An asshole rarely needs to do that. It's just that there's something that they're very self-referential about. I'm not picking you up. I'm not doing that. I'm not you. You should bring me the coffee. You're the woman, or whatever. It's something like that. But it's not about putting somebody down to stand on top of them and be higher. That is a very distinct difference between an asshole and a narcissist.
All right. I think we have
talked about that. There's a lot of people that had a lot of reactions.
Yeah. Let's see. That was about the weather.
How is the weather in Seattle?
Hello from Sweden. I'm wondering if anatta, no self, is referred to the insight from the first or eighth fetter. Sorry, I got some of these.
There we go. What's it? I would love to talk about anatta.
Yes. Okay. We'll come back to that one momentarily. Then why is it not first fetter, since it's all to see there is no self? I think. Oh wait, sorry. Chanath said that's eighth fetter. Okay, this is talking about the anatta thing. So then Nil said, why isn't it first fetter, since there's no self?
Can we talk about anatta in a moment?
Chanath said, from what I know, the first fetter is an experience of self without thought.
Thank you so much, Chanath, for going into the discussion about it. I love that. We talk about anatta in a moment's sake, all that. Is there anything about that?
I'm trying to find. Patty said, there's a systematic everyness. My wrinkles afford me a seat on a very full bus. I was shocked when I realized this. Yeah, it's true. It's amazing that. Yeah. There are pros and cons to every little aspect of our
privilege,
appearance, and Chanath said, I had a philosophy class on this issue. It was fascinating. I think it was along the lines of dominant groups don't identify as dominant groups as subordinate groups do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes sense. We don't know what we don't know. These are programs that have been handed down for generations. We didn't know what we didn't know. Yeah, exactly. Kebab said, lots of sensations happening here. I do not agree with a lot of the woke / non-woke discussion here. Interesting.
What am I woke about?
Well, I don't know, given that I don't know Kebab. What they're saying. I mean, it's interesting because, like, if you want to
I don't really understand the woke word, but it's because of a second language thing. I don't really understand what it is. I understand that some of. No, I don't understand it.
if you would like to,
if you could elaborate, I would love to hear it. I would love to hear it.
In the meantime, do you want to take the anatta question?
Yeah, sure.
So the question again from Nils was wondering if anatta, no self, is referred to as the insight from the first or eighth fetter.
First and eighth, in the way that we look at it with the wheel of identification, first and eighth is paired.
I mean, I would say yes. I would say, generally speaking, though, we usually refer to anatta as the eighth fetter.
Yeah.
Because that's the last of the real experiences of identification.
Yeah. The first fetter identification is the very crude identification with my name, my education, my gender, my race. So the first, and my body, losing weight because I am someone if I'm not losing weight, or exercising because I am someone, having Botox because I am someone if I have wrinkles. So that's a very, very crude identification in the first fetter. The identification with the self in the eighth fetter, it's more like that kernel of an I that we have. We know that there's no identification with the self anymore, but there is like a feeling of a self-referential center that is defendable, and that I need to have a belief about that I need to protect it or defend for a belief about the universe having my back or anything like that. So I would also say that anatta is the eighth.
Yeah. Because I was just going to follow up on that. This is why is it not the first fetter, since as to see there's no self. Yeah, and as Chanath was saying, the first fetter is really just those identifications with body, thought, all of those more gross identifications, and yet there's still so many subtle, lingering ways that we identify that continue on through that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw somewhere on Discord somebody asked if we could open up for Buddhist thread.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love
I meant
that.
to do that.
On the Awakening Curriculum channel, we have a playlist called the Sangha series, where there's lots of different Sangha stuff, Buddhist stuff.
Probably more
chanting
coming next year.
Yeah, much more. Hopefully, much more coming next year.
Okay, so kebab is Jahara. Okay, hold on. So Patty said, could you, oh no, that was right. Leila said, what you said is easily interpreted as political position and not about inquiring into all forms of identification as we are doing here. For example, the assumption that there is good identification versus bad identification.
I don't understand it.
Regarding the sort of positions of isms, racism, homophobia, misogyny, things like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's complicated when we are talking about this sort of thing, because we tend to.
I'm sorry, what thing are we talking about?
Oh, the whole first section that we just discussed with all of the narcissism, racism, patriarchy, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because the issue is when we're talking about the non-duality stuff, they can very much be where we're talking about the lack of identification of any sort. And that's including giving up political identification, racial and gender identification, all of that stuff.
Yeah, there's no attachment to it.
There's no attachment to any of it. But we have the idea that when we're doing this, that we're also elevating on some realm that's beyond all of this, because you can have experiences that transcend all of this, where you no longer feel like a body. So any identification with the body seems to be quite secondary or moot. Well, I'm getting there.
Okay.
But the point is that we also live in both sides of the world. Like we live in the ultimate, where, of course, we can see, look down, and or feel into and recognize that there is nobody here, and there is nobody to identify with any position or any of that. And that is a very tangible, experienceable way of being. But there's also another practical, part of the world where this stuff is actually happening. And there's that finding the balance between engaging in what is actually here and taking a philosophical position or even an experiential position that seems to be above it and doesn't engage with it. And like we watched, there was a really good Ram Dass video where he was talking about the what's it called? Having a heart while in hell or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's having that, be able to experience both experiences of being non-attached. And there was a wonderful phrase in it, because I think it was his guru who had told him, it's like, if you are in the complete open vastness of everything, you lose your humanity. And if you are embroiled just in the humanity, then you lose that open spaciousness.
I don't really understand what has been said. Yeah. I didn't understand what was talking about. But I just want to say that even though I do not identify with my body, and I do not identify as a white or a woman or anything like that, if I hurt someone else, then I need to apologize. If I am racist towards someone, even though I would never ever do anything to cause pain to any being at all. If I'm causing any pain to anyone, even if it's their second feather shit and they need to look at that, but they have that, you have really, really hurt me by saying that. I have experienced that lots of times because I say things that it's not meant in any way, but I'm very, very direct, and people that get hurt about it. Then of course I need to apologize. I did not mean anything with it, and I don't want you to be in any kind of pain. So even though I do not identify with it, and if you say you are so fucking arrogant, you are so racist, you are so everything, I can't remember what it was, anything, then even though I don't identify as any of the things you have just said about me, and I don't recognize myself at all in anything you have just said, I am fucking sorry that I activated all that in you. Can I help you in any way? Can I support you in any way? Can I hold your hand and we can sort this out together? Because there's clearly something that needs to be felt into and worked with on your side because you got activated, but probably also on my side in my non-identification with anything, like you just said. I don't want to lose my humanity, but of course the humanity is lost when I don't identify with anything. But that doesn't mean that I should stomp around with my big boots and going like, I'm not identified like anything, now I'm stepping on all of you. That is just being a fucking asshole. And if I in any way cause any kind of pain, I need to acknowledge that, even though it wasn't done on purpose.
Yeah. So it's really about finding that balance of where we can have that openness and experiential disconnect that really happens. It's like a benign disassociation, effectively, from all the things that used to be important to me and my identifications and my tribal identifications and all the things that I once needed to feel like part of an in-group. As those things are no longer necessary and they get let go of, it still doesn't mean that we're not bodies acting in a world with other people where there are repercussions and there are interactions and there are causes and conditions that lead to more and more events that have real practical implications for the non-people who are here. So on that level, we can still experience it and we can still engage with it in ways that are hopefully compassionate and coming from a place of curious acceptance and cooperation. And if nothing else, hopefully it leads to that because we don't come in with that place of identification that leads to defense. It hopefully allows us to actually be more productively active and be there to be engaged without hooks in a way that we couldn't have before, when it was so much about defending my own being and identity and all those beliefs about me.
I have a wonderful brother, and we're very, very direct with one another, and he can ask me, a friend I had, she said so and so, and I said so and so, and then she got really offended. Was I in the wrong? And I would go like, yeah, you were an asshole, and I can just be open about that. But I remember once where he had a lot of things, he was blah 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 saying, and I was like, it really sounds like a you problem, and that made everything worse. And the only thing I could do was just apologize for saying that. He took it really, really, really like there was a fault on him, and I was sitting on my throne and pointing it out. And so I needed to really just connect with my heart and holding space and like, I love you, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for you to be offended in any way. And then just help him working through that, even though it was a him problem. It was a him problem, but it became a me problem when I caused pain in him.
Yeah, it's the skillful way of sometimes pointing it out directly isn't the most skillful or compassionate way to do it, even though there's a truth behind it.
Yeah.
And it's finding that balance of where you can point to something, but you also have to take into account where the other person is and whether they are in a place to hear it.
And that is not always my key competence. but then own the pain and apologize.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So it's that not tying into where I have to feel like I'm always in the right. And so I can't
defend my stand, because
Exactly.
then it's just identifying with me being right and my brother being wrong.
Exactly.
Then there's just identification happening.
Yeah, exactly. So it's finding the identification in all those subtle ways where even in those things like, but I'm sure I was right about, it really was his problem. And it was the right thing for me to say it was all his problem.
That's identification.
Yeah. So it can be really, really subtle.
Yeah. There's lots of things has happened.
Okay. Jahara, I don't agree that there is systematic racism here in the U.S., but I don't think the point of this live is for us to be in agreement. It's more to support me in seeing more clearly. Well, thank you for, it's
I experience it all the time, but it's also because I'm not from the US. So I see a lot of things here that are very different. And the way that I see Black people or colored people being treated by white people, and it's the smallest things, but it's just
people of color, by the way.
Is it called people of color? Yeah. Again, I'm fucking sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm from the widest of the widest countries. I do not know, and I'm so sorry if I'm offending any people of color. But what I see is like it's the smallest things. It's like a person of color is saying something in a service situation, is saying something, and the white person just do that. Is like flipping off with their entire body, and that would not have happened if it was a white person standing there. So it's like I see it a lot because I come from the widest of the widest places on earth.
Yeah, obviously we're not going to get into long political discussions here because that's not what we do. But it is interesting, like you said, Jahara, and I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, I'm super happy.
Yeah, that it's more about seeing clearly. And so what we would point to is to look into where the uncertainty comes from on any position. And that's what I was trying to get at before, is I'm really happy that I grew up seeing completely one side of the political spectrum and then flipping to the absolute opposite. And being able to see both, and also being able to, in that, not then lock into, oh, well, then the second one is the correct one, is recognizing that there is propaganda happening in both places. It's that there's manipulation in both places, that there are some things which I believe that are just, certain positions that seem more logical from one reason or another in one than the other. But it's really about recognizing how much of what we believe is based off of either the fact that we just haven't dug deeply into varied enough sources to find something, but then also to notice in us what feels like that how we know that we believe something, like what is the actual experience of conviction that I know that this is true. Well, you can break it down strategically into how I've learned it, who's taught it to me, how ingrained it was, but get into your body and really find what it feels like to be convinced that anything at all is true. And that is such a powerful way of breaking down the walls of the beliefs that need to be defended, because you start to recognize that, you don't know everything. And then it dawns on you, maybe bit by bit, maybe explosively, that actually we don't know anything
about anything.
There is nothing that we know outside of our own perceived experience. And so when somebody else says that the world is like this, and you feel like it's absolutely the opposite case, it's so interesting if, instead of getting defensive and thinking, well, those people are insane, there's something wrong with them, you go, why is it that person can look at this exact same world that I'm supposedly seeing and yet see things to be in polar opposite? All the colors are different. All the, everything about it is upside down. How is that possible if we're looking at things, if we're looking at the same world through the same apparatus? And that should be really, really interesting to start to break down how much we can trust our own perceptions and our own belief systems, and let that start to erode. And then also notice any insecurity that pops up. If you feel like you need to have some belief to hold on to, some in-group that supports what you say, that there are other people that believe the way I do, so I know I must be in the right. Like, I know I'm okay because I'm not the only one saying this. And there's even like a scientist that agrees with me, so that must be true. Like, look at what we're using to create this feeling of knowingness, the feeling of security, and it really gets us down to that probably some layer of fear or insecurity that's underneath it, that's calling out for some sort of assurance in order to have it so that we can be comfortable going about our daily life feeling like we have some grasp of something. And that can be really, really scary and kind of destabilizing. So be gentle with yourself, but also, if you're interested and up for doing it, it is so fruitful to question every single position that you find yourself coming to throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every single thing.
Go into the fifth fetter, and everything you believe to be true, look at the bubble of reality that is pointing at you. Even if you're sitting and discussing with somebody that is a flat earther. Now, I don't know if you're a flat earther, anybody who's sitting and watching this, and if you believe that you are flat earther, imagine you are discussing with a round earther. But it's just that something that you absolutely, utterly just know. You just know that to be true. Feel, like Todd says, feel into where that comes from, because we're not talking about the earth. We're not talking about a shape of anything. We're talking about an underlying belief, and that underlying belief has roots. And whatever you hear the other person is saying is a mirror. It's super, super helpful. But you need to get out of the way, and you need to look at what is it that mirror is reflecting. Because whatever you hear other people are saying, it is what you hear, and it is what gets your attention in everything that is said. It has a certain flavor, and that flavor is so interesting to look into because it's all about you.
Yeah, and it points back to all of the conditioning and all of the beliefs that are in you that are coloring the world that you see around you.
Yeah.
So we tend to, if we feel like the world is an unsafe place, we go throughout the world finding unsafety everywhere.
Yeah.
If we feel like there is no misogyny in the world, we're going to go through life having every experience is going to confirm to us that misogyny just doesn't exist. And the ones that do come in that like point to, oh, maybe that incident could have been taken by somebody who believes in misogyny to refer to misogyny, it'll be written off. It won't even be recognized. And so we are so selective in our perceptions and our interpretations of what we perceive that they tend to very rarely rock the boat of our core belief system. And that's why the more that you start to wear away at that core belief system and open up to other things, you can start to notice things perhaps that you just haven't seen before. And it goes for everybody. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you identify with.
That's the whole thing. And it's the last thing I think that we're going to talk about this, that there is no political spectrum. That none of that is real. There are people that are defending underlying beliefs, and those underlying beliefs can be looked into. And when we look into it, all of that identification dissolves. It does not fucking matter if you're a Democrat, a Republican, or socialist, or conservative, or it doesn't matter. It's only for you to learn about what is the underlying belief that I am moving about in my life with, that is shaping my entire perception of everything. It's only an invitation for you to become wiser on your types of identification. It's got nothing to do with politics at all.
No. Yeah.
And for everybody that is not in the US, we're about to have election, and that's why this is very, very up on front in what we're talking about. Everywhere else in the world, they're like, why are they talking about this?
I know. Oh, wow. Okay, hold on a second. Lots of stuff going on. Okay, heard that. Yep, so that. Chanath said, subtle sense of a center that takes experience with a sense of time. Yeah, it's a good for the first fetter. Thank you. Identifying with the senses. So identifying with the senses, is that still from the first fetter then? That's a tough one because it depends on what we're talking about when we mean
we say
senses.
identify.
Well, identifying with the senses. Identifying with pain and a lot of those kind of sensations tends to be a very first fetter thing, but it can continue. Can you elaborate actually what you mean by identifying with the senses? Because the sixth fetter is where a lot of the breakdown between we up until the sixth fetter, we still have the idea that like there's a world out here and there is some sort of a witness, something in here which is seeing the world out there. And so I am perceiving it. It is separate from me. I am hearing something out there. It is separate from me in here, or maybe not me, but something in here that's witnessing it and taking it in, that's located inside of something separate from all of these things outside. And if that's what you mean, then there's an identification with the seeing, like the faculty of seeing or the faculty of hearing, that I can hear, I can know, I can feel. If that's what you mean, then that's really around the sixth and seventh fetter that is breaking down, because then it starts to become clear that there is no witnesser, nothing separate inside. Actually no inside, which is separate from anything outside. Everything is of that same automatically arising, automatically known essence, which does not need a secondary being or some sort of a witnessing agent or even awareness or consciousness in order to know the things or to recognize or to see or to hear. And so that is breaking apart in the sixth or seventh.
Could you pass me my glasses? Because the sound is so loud, the blue glasses.
Over there. Yeah, it is super, super loud.
We have somebody from, I think, the council cutting trees or something that is super, super loud in the background. And this is this is autistic synesthesia. When there are very, very loud noises, I take on blue glasses, so the sound are getting more mute. So now here we are, the sunglasses on.
Is that helping?
Yeah, much better.
They're also turning down the motor, so it really worked.
It really worked. Really worked.
Yeah, it's like one of those big tree shredders,
tree grinders, shredders one.
Yeah,
but that's an autistic thing. If you are on the spectrum and you react with sounds when you're out and about, get a pair of blue glasses. The volume is turned down.
And it really works because it literally turned down the volume out there. So spot on.
Works.
Narcissism is also an ism, not like one that has a choice. This work has helped me hold the... So Leela said, this work has helped me hold the isms lightly. There are ways to discuss our cultural and conditioned filters without using ism language. It's very easily misinterpreted here in the US, especially now. God, yes, that is the truth.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yep, relative and the absolute, it can be easily misinterpreted, surely. Nature of mind, quite contradicting often. Yeah, this is the thing that we really flip back and forth in ways that I understand can be confusing to people. Because between the relative and the absolute, because we do talk about things that are in the absolute realm quite frequently. I mean, the relative realm quite frequently, and sometimes it's useful. You okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's useful to take the ultimate view of things, but other times it can just end up bypassing things that we really need to look into here and now. So the ultimate level is wonderful, but it can leave us in that detached,
we need to be connected with our humanity.
Yeah, it can leave us in that inhuman, dissociated, just cut off state. Which
we need to maintain our humanity.
Yeah, It's
even
fine if you.
even when we're not identifying anymore,
Yeah,
because everybody we socialize with are.
it's fine. I was gonna say it's fine if you're like just gonna go off and live in a cave and
Mm.
never have any interactions with anybody or anything. But when we're here, it can be really detrimental to live from that place of just being above everything else and having no connection, where it's like, yeah, I see the homeless person on the street, but I don't care because there's nobody in there, and it's
the karma,
it's like,
and
yeah,
it's the karma, and there's so many things they can learn from being a homeless person. So
yeah.
I don't need to engage.
And there's no person.
And basically,
there's no person.
they're me.
It's just
They're me.
exactly,
They're
yeah.
driving a Mercedes Benz, so actually,
exactly.
it's fine.
Yeah. So it's really having that humility to recognize that just because your experience is currently bigger, less identified, more expansive, or whatever, it doesn't actually mean that the experiences of the rest of the world have changed, or that it impacts things in a way that is that, I'll put it like, it's still helpful to do charitable acts. It's still helpful to be compassionate and to act on the local relative level.
But it's also like, it's not only in Buddhism that we have the bodhisattva vow. A bodhisattva is a person that vow to, there's like a vow where, I'm not going to say all of it now, but it's like, the sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. That's just one of them, of the vows that you take, that that your job in this lifetime and all the following lifetime that you have, that's what Buddhists believe in, that you vow to save other people. So it's not about you becoming awake. You work to becoming awake, so you in an awake state can help other people. It's also why it's always said that bodhisattvas, they go to hell, because why would they go to heaven when there's still people sent to hell that needs help? So we go to hell to help other people becoming awake. And it is really that understanding that just because there is no one here, and there's no identification here, and I'm not separate from anything, the person that I'm interacting with right now do not know that. It's like
Exactly.
you are compassionate and kind towards a child, for example, that do not understand irony, or is about to run out on the road, and the mom yells and the child gets scared. The mom needs to console the child and make the child feel safe again, because the child did not understand that it was doing anything wrong. And we need to meet people where they're at. So just because you are awake and you are not identifying does not mean that the rest of the world does not either.
Exactly. And notice that is taken as a belief. If you are in a place where it feels like everything is great in the world, everything is perfect, nothing needs to be helped, I don't need to do anything to help anybody else or anything because it's all as it should be, that is a belief that is being operated out of. And every belief can be called into question, because from which authority is that coming? How do you know that is the truth? Like you just said, it can feel like it's great that I'm awake and that person isn't, and it makes all the difference that I'm awake. But to that person, they don't know the difference. They can't tell, right? Their inner experience is still as identified as it has ever been. And they're probably not getting anything more out of that experience of you being awake and
non-identifying,
light and non-identified.
And if you then say, but then it's just the same with the person that is awake, they have a belief that they need to help other people. It's absolutely true. But in the direct experience right now, you're standing in front of a person that you clearly can see is suffering. So the only thing you can do in that moment in your direct experience is help, is support. You can't do anything else. So the belief that you might have that your job on this planet is to help and support people, it's true, it is a belief. But in the direct experience, when you are in the situation right now and there's a person drowning in front of you, there's only one thing you can do, and that is helping. Otherwise, it would be a belief that I don't need to help, they can sort themselves out. In the direct experience, that would be a belief.
And that's where we get, it's a deeper, more complicated topic. But even
let's take all the big ones.
I know,
today.
let's go. But even within Buddhism, it's the Mahayana position that we should be helping other people. In the Theravadan position, it's not really the case.
No.
So even within Buddhism, there are rifts between how much we actually do help other people and how much it's just my enlightenment for me to get me the hell out of here because I don't want to come back.
I just want to defend the Theravadan. I've been doing Theravadan for a lot of years, decades, and I just want to defend it. There's this, comparison story that is always used, that two Buddhists are standing by a train station and an elderly lady is dragging her suitcase and the whistle is blown, the train is about to take off. The Theravadan Buddhist would look at the old woman, and seeing that she needs help and go like, she has a task in front of her that will develop her, that will help her reaching enlightenment. And who am I to know what that would be? You hear me say that all the time. Who am I to know? Yeah. Who am I to know? And then the Theravadan Buddhist will get on the train and the train will leave. The Mahayana Buddhist would run to help the old lady because they see help happening in this moment. There's a person in need, so therefore I run to help and will help the old lady with the suitcase. And that is basically the difference between Theravada and Mahayana.
And yeah, I mean, again, it's
we're being told something that we need to be aware of. I was spending too much time. Move on.
kept on track. No, but it's a bigger issue, but it's something where it's just brings up that difference of opinion of, even having the belief that an awakened person should behave in a certain way is not even universal to the same religion of Buddhism. No. That there are differences of belief based on culture, based on teachings, based on interpretations, based on the individual who is doing this work and what their proclivities. People tend to, now that we have a smorgasbord of opportunities for spiritual paths and stuff, we tend to be drawn towards the things which have some sort of resonance to our personality or the way that we process information or something about our conditioning that draws us to one path and not another. And I think that's why we tend to have such different experiences, is because we are all coming from different places with different conditioning. Each mind-body organism is creating its own little world based on its own differences of experiences. And so anytime we get locked into a belief that this experience is the true one, this one has the answers, this one knows something that one doesn't, that's where we are really called to be humble and to investigate our experience, to see by what authority am I assuming that this little body mind organism is actually seeing the truth of the world and how things really are.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. With that, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Okay. Patty said, yesterday I hurt my husband and I was unconscious how my words affected him. It stung like hell.
Yeah.
And then she said to Chnaf, I'm having difficulty following what you're reacting to what's being said by PNC. Liberation Unleashed. Okay, thank you, Leela. Chnaf said, perhaps Todd will shed clarity reading through the messages. Okay, hold on. So let me just go back to see. I feel like I missed something. Did we cover that? It's getting confusing with the back and forths on here. Okay, Chnaf said, relative and absolute can be easily misinterpreted. We talked about that. Yeah, I think we covered that, right? Okay.
Next
hold
question.
On, I got a message. Okay, I didn't miss anything. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Neil said, identifying with the senses of direct experience, like there is no one here seeing, smelling. This is just seeing and smelling. Yeah, it's a combination of, and if it thinks it's me smelling, seeing, etc., that's what I mean. In other words, It is first fetter that identify with verbs like seeing, talking, smelling, walking. Yeah. So in the like at Liberation Unleashed, we tend to work a lot with that kind of the feeling of me doing something versus it just happening. And you can actually, there's like an exercise that they give where you write down everything that you're doing at this moment. Like, I am smelling coffee. I am typing on a keyboard. I am seeing a tree through the window. And then you feel how it feels to say, I am doing all of these things. I'm smelling, I'm seeing, I'm tasting, I'm hearing. And then you write the exact same sentences, but without the I am. So typing on a keyboard, seeing a tree through the window, smelling coffee, or smelling coffee is happening, something like that, where you take the I am out of it. And if you do it slowly and as an inquiry, you will likely feel that there is a difference in the feeling in the body. There's a perceptual difference when we put that I am label on it compared to when it's just a verb happening without the identification.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it is definitely addressed in the first fetter through LU. But what I was getting at is that there is the kind of deeper, even after you've seen that, there is often still that feeling of
experiencing happening.
Yeah.
So smelling is still happening.
Yeah.
And seeing is still happening. And in the sixth fetter, we dissolve the experiencer of the smelling and the seeing. So there's no center of any experience that is landing anywhere.
Yeah.
It is just an experience on its own without an experiencer. But that is in the sixth fetter.
Exactly. And then I was just saying, and then even those start to lose their grounding, where like smelling doesn't even exist because now it's just some cloud of phenomena that you can't even identify.
Sound is not really sound. It's just vibration that are moving in the frequency that is, in a certain way. Seeing is not really seeing because it steps in and out of what it actually is. So there's no attachment to that. And I just want to say that it's super powerful. I also want to sing a little song about that. I'm going to make some affirmation videos where it's positive affirmation for the different, for the bully, for the passive aggressive bully, and for the chameleon, because it's very powerful to say I am something. And when we want to dissolve underlying beliefs and all those pre-verbal what's it called? Not indoctrination patterns that we have. It's really, really powerful to do the I am safe, I am worthy, I am here. I count. To say, I love myself. To do the I am is really super helpful when you're doing brainwash and when you're reprogramming your underlying beliefs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Let's see. All right, covered that. Marianne said, I just got a text from the Democratic Party saying we are battling for the soul of America. So Sigas, and this is the thing. There is rhetoric on both sides.
It's so insane.
I've mentioned this before, but I mean, it's just such a fascinating phenomenon to me because I have friends on Facebook on both sides of the political spectrum, and they will post stuff that if you didn't know who was posting it, you literally wouldn't know which side it's pointing to.
So you have shown me, Todd has shown me memes and not said who was posting it, and just the meme, and asked me, so what do they mean about this? And you cannot say if it's a Republican or Democrat that has posted it, because what the rhetoric in it is propaganda.
Yeah.
Which means that it's about we are right, they are wrong, and both parties are saying that.
And they're both literally saying the same thing.
Yeah, exactly the same thing.
Basically, it's a Rorschach test to see when you see that. If I believe this party is correct and one of their people posts this, then that means what I think it means, and I'm going to send it on. And then when somebody else sees the exact same thing from the other side and doesn't realize where it's coming from, they're going to point it right back at them. So it's a complete mirror. It's hysterical.
a Republican posting a Chomsky quote.
Yeah, that was actually really funny.
Where a Republican, a Trump supporter, was posting a Chomsky, who is a Democrat, quote.
He's an anarcho-socialist.
Yeah,
he's not a Democrat.
Not a Democrat.
He is very far to the left.
Very far to the left. Socialist to the left. That was posting something about the right, but the person on the right didn't know who Chomsky was and took that as you say a Rorschach test, and that is definitely somebody on the right talking about those people on the left. It's really bizarre. It's really bizarre that split in the country.
Okay, I covered those. And Jahara said yes to no one. Yes to one-on-one apologies. Yes, person to person. But there's a difference from a so-called system. But yes, that's looking deep and noticing the grasping is helpful. Every belief needs to be called into question. Yes, absolutely. How do you know when a person is spiritually bypassing after seeing through the illusion of the self or doer? Fieries? Sorry, I can't read that. Fieries 2000 asked that. A really good question.
How do you know if somebody is spiritually bypassing?
How do you know when a person is spiritually bypassing after seeing through the illusion of self or the doer?
Well, you rarely can talk about other people. How you can rarely.
Well, let's put it to them. So how would they know if they were spiritually bypassing after seeing through the self?
That's what I wanted to say. That you can rarely be the judge of what other people are doing, because we don't know what is happening in the other person. We can judge something and saying that you cannot say that you have passed all 10 feathers and then kick a kitten. You can't do that, No. So they're like some basic ones. You cannot say you have passed all 10 feathers and get angry at somebody or have experienced road rage or anything, be judgmental towards anyone about anything. You cannot say that, both. So they're like big ones that we can, say. But in general, I always, I would like for you to, whenever you judge anybody for anything, to look into the mirror and see what is actually happening in you right now. What is this really about? Because you can be absolutely certain it's not about the other person. So if you're spiritually bypassing, if you see other people spiritually bypass, look after when you are spiritually bypassing yourself, or what judgment you have about awakened people.
Yes, but now how do they know if they're spiritually bypassing?
The one that are spiritually bypassing, they probably don't.
No, but the person I think is asking, how do I know? I'm just going to rephrase it. So how do I know if I am spiritually bypassing after seeing through the self or doer?
Okay. Now I understand. That's an easy one.
Because that's
okay. You know you're spiritually bypassing when you do not feel anything. Whenever an issue is arising and you feel nothing, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. And then you just, deflect all the time. Then you're probably spiritually bypassing.
Yeah. It's also the doer part of it is an interesting one, because I would say if you weren't, well, okay. I'm kind of backtracking here. So if a situation comes up, say you have to make a big decision about something, and it's an issue where ordinarily, maybe prior to seeing through self, it would have been a major issue for you. You would have been really stressing over it and weighing out pros and cons. Should I do this or that? And having this whole mental hang up about it. If then you are now coming from the standpoint that, well, there's no me to make a decision and there's no doer to do anything, so it really doesn't matter what I choose, the right thing is just going to happen. If it's coming from a place where you are still feeling an undercurrent of anxiety, an undercurrent of concern, something where it still feels like it's maybe not 100% true in your experience, that things are just going to be happening. Well, yeah, but before we even get to that point,
okay.
If you have any inclination in you that if you feel some sort of insecurity that's happening, and then you're using that phrasing as, but there's no me anyway. Something's going to happen. It's just going to happen anyway, and the right thing is going to happen. And even if the wrong thing happens,
It's
it doesn't.
fine.
It's fine. It doesn't happen. That is you bypassing, because you're using that belief that you have gotten from someplace, even if it's from an insight that you have had in the past. If that is being used as a belief to console yourself and to relax so that you don't feel like you have to do something in this moment, then that's bypassing. If the doing is actually happening actively without it feeling like a doer, then that's just things happening without a doership.
It was exactly what I wanted to say. If you also have that feeling that I'm standing in front of this choice, I don't know which one to pick. In the old days, I would have been super anxious about it. Now I'm just going to leave it up to the flow, and the flow is making sure of it. Then you have a doer. You believe that there's a doer. That is still identification, and you're probably bypassing. If it's just like, whoa, okay, here we go, and then it's already done. There's no doer, and it was just flow taking care of it. So that's when we talk about 9-feather flow. It's also really important to be very clear on what that is. That is not something that you can let happen.
Because that letting is itself a feeling of doership.
You cannot make it happen.
But even the idea that, like, I am going to get out of the way now. And just like
there's such a doer in that.
There's doing in that. It's a difference between things actually happening and having that extra grasping feeling of the one who still needs to manipulate the circumstances in such a way that things can just happen on their own, and as opposed to just things are always happening.
And the last thing I want to say about it is that the main thing that people normally bypass about is any type of reaction. You get angry, or you get frustrated, or you get annoyed, or you get irritated, or you get any of those 5-feather things that is happening. And then you say, but that was just annoyance happening. I didn't get annoyed at all. I didn't get annoyed. That was just me kicking, a kitten. It wasn't really me kicking a kitten.
It wasn't really
kicking.
even a kitten.
Kicking just happened, and I'm the kitten. And I just punched you. It wasn't me punching you. It was just a reaction that is fucking bypassing.
It was gone as soon as I punched you. It was like I got
there's
it out,
nothing left anymore. No, you're lying there with a broken nose. But I mean, I'm not angry. I'm not angry at all. There's no residue whatsoever. Here. And now you create an issue because you want to go to the ER. I mean, seriously, man. So much identification there. Nothing here at all.
No.
That's bypassing.
So just be aware of any of those things where it's where the activity feels in some way incongruent with the belief about it. It's really, so much of this comes down to absolute honesty. Really, truly not just saying, well, I know I've seen there's no self, so even though I feel like I'm selfing right now, it can't possibly be the case. This will just go away. Be honest and just look in that moment, because there's no failure here. There's no, I got something wrong. Oh no, I'm not where I thought I was. Oh, I have to go back to square one again. It's just a moment that needs more attention. Inquire, let that do its thing, move on.
Wonderful. Let's move on.
Okay, covered that one. Janat said, I think this is very confusing. LOL. Self-doubt. What can you, sorry, is it I don't even know what's confusing. I'm confused about what's confusing. Is it all of the talking back and forth, or is it something that we've said?
Confusing.
I think this is very confusing. Yeah, if there's something that specifically is confusing about anything that we're talking about, please ask specifically, just so we know. I'm happy to address that
and move on with the
in the meantime.
The Discord.
We do have some
so
Discord
many
questions.
On Discord.
If we don't get through all of them this week, we'll get them next time. We do say that we prioritize the people live on the thing, so
we do.
It happens. Okay. Ben Stagg said, does saying I missed you signify an attachment? Or is it only an attachment if there's a story behind that, rather than just seeing someone you haven't seen in a while and saying, I've missed you, without any of those narratives about the past or future? Hope that makes sense. Another thing is grief. That confuses me, as the mind sees grief of like a lost relationship with someone as a sign of attachment, when it doesn't necessarily feel like it's that way. So, what's the difference between grieving a loss of a person or a relationship that's ended and attachment to that person? I know grief arises naturally no matter what stage of awakening one is in, as it's a core human emotion.
Yeah. The first one is that in your direct experience right now, you cannot miss anyone. There is no missing of anyone right now, because in your direct experience there is just this what is here right now. So when Todd is at the farmer's market, and I'm home, or you're out doing something and I'm at home, I don't really feel that I'm missing him until I hear the cardboard opening or he's coming through the door. Then I feel in my body in that moment, oh my goodness, I missed you so much. I got so much to tell you. Um, so it's more that there's no attachment to anything being any different in the moment. And I feel that I missed him when I see him, or if something is happening and I would like to share it with him.
It's an interesting thing though too, is even how we're defining missing in that way, because it's almost more like the way you describe it isn't so much that a retrospective realizing that you missed me. It's more of like just an excitement to see me
In the
in that
moment,
moment,
yeah.
which we kind of colloquially refer to as
Yeah, you're
missing
right.
somebody.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I think where that differs is that there are people who actively, you've been out of a relationship for a year or two or something, and like every day the people are like still thinking about that
Yes,
person.
yes,
Like,
yes.
I wish I was here. I wish we hadn't broken up. I wish they hadn't died. I wish.
Yeah, the whole concept of the one
Whatever.
that got away
Exactly.
is that.
Yeah, and that's really like an act of attachment in the moment, because you're taking what's here and you're doing that fourth and fifth fetter thing of
Yeah.
saying there's a hypothetical alternative universe where we were still together, and right now would be so much better if that person was with me, but they're not. And so I'm feeling the lack of that person's presence right here, even though it's all in your mind. It's only in the imagination. There is no such thing as a lack of anything in any given moment. Everything is completely full and here and perfect in that regard in this moment. It takes a mental attitude, an imagination, to say that something else could be better if this other thing was different. And it's that kind of missing that we're talking about with attachment, that there's a lack of that person, but lack does not exist. Missing somebody like that does not exist.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. About grief, there are two types of grief, and I can't remember which psychologist it is that has defined it, but he talks about a warm grief and a cold grief. And normally, when I talk about it, I usually talk about my neighbors in Spain. I was living in a very small village in Spain, and my neighbors Anna and Andres, there was like an old couple, and they had lost their son. And Anna, she was in cold grief, and Andres, he was in warm grief. Anna, she was completely locked into missing her son, and every single time she talked about him, she started to cry. She could not go through the day without thinking, when she was cooking their lunch and their dinner, she was thinking about how her son was not there and how he would have loved this food and how he would. So she was in the constant contraction of something not being like it used to be. And Andres, he was in warm grief. He's missed his son very much, but he went to his house every day and walked his dog. They were still living in the house; they couldn't have in their house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they kept the house exactly like he had died like half a year earlier than we moved in. So he was still going to the house and taking the dog for a walk, and taking the mail in and making sure, opening windows and airing out and closing windows and taking care of all of that, and having that relationship with the memory where it's like, I really loved him, where it was like that warm experience. And when Anna died, it was the same thing that Andres, he still had that warm grief towards her, and thinking, okay, now she's with our son, and now, it's actually for the better, that it's better that she's there because she didn't deal with it well, and
Mhm.
I'm better to dealing with it. And so he, just got on with life. And that, to me, is very, very clear distinction between cold grief and warm grief. That one is contracting and completely freezing everything in the moment of the peak of sadness, and there's no movement at all in it. Everything is frozen. And the warm grief is the expansive, and the life goes on, and still loving and still missing, but not having an issue with the feeling of sadness and with the feeling of missing.
Yeah. And I was going to say, just regarding grief, it is a really interesting one, because we have, obviously, there are those, formulations of like the 7 or 6 stages of grief. And like, I found personally, it's quite variable. And in talking to other people, I found that it's more variable than we are often led to believe. And it manifests in all different ways. And there's a difference between the act of grief of thinking about a person and the changes in behavior and experiences in the body and in the emotions and the moods that seemingly have no direct connection to that person, but that still manifest because of the change in life when we lose somebody who is a big part of our life. So, for instance, as most people know, I took care of my mom for a long time, and when she passed away, at first it was like I didn't really feel much of anything in terms of I think I had been preparing for it for so long, for one thing, but it was almost like I had this like energy, and I was only sleeping like 4 hours a night, and I was doing all this stuff in the house, and it was just kind of like boundless energy. And interestingly, I actually forgot about this until last night. I happened to find a journal that I had written back during those following months throughout that year. And actually, there was a lot more sadness and
Loneliness.
loneliness and stuff than I remember now having experienced. So it was interesting seeing it in writing. But at that point, it was like it took like a solid year before some of the other stages of grief started to hit.
Mm.
And it was ways of like, again, like the amount of energy of just being able to do things around the house and to get on with things and to sort out all of the legal odds and ends and, donating things and all of that. It just happened completely separate from any sort of thoughts or emotions about her or the loss of her, any of that. And but it was still very much related to that change of life that can happen when you lose somebody. And then when a year later, all of a sudden, some of that sort of missing feeling came up, and those thoughts came up, then that was like a new thing that had finally had time to settle in and came out in different ways. And so then that had its chance to be felt and experienced. And there were many different ups and downs, and I can't say that I went through all of the traditional ones in whatever formulation, but it's interesting to note that grief can also just be a label that
Mm.
is something that we call a whole range of
Yeah.
experiences that can happen after somebody dies.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be after somebody dies. It can
No.
be after a friendship
Yeah.
is ending, or
Yeah.
a relationship is ending. It can be after being fired from your job, or a colleague being fired from your job, or losing, a pet. It
Exactly.
can be,
Yeah.
you can feel grief over a lot of things. It can be grief over season changing. People go into depression in winter
Yeah.
because they feel grief about summer not being here
Yeah.
anymore. And
Yeah. We
so
talked about that at the beginning with the time change.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So it's like that it's just a label that we put on a lot of emotions that are happening, and it's about can you be in a body where this emotion is arising? You allow the emotion to arise, you feel into the body, to what is actually happening, feel into the underlying belief of what is underneath here. Why is it turning into a cold or warm grief? What is it? Cold grief is obviously it's contracted, so there's something you do not want to acknowledge and feel into. The warm grief is where you can feel into it, and you can be in a body, and you can be in a life and in a world where you have, whatever is arising in you.
Yeah. And it may take years for that, all the different energetic changes to happen, all the things to kind of move through in different ways. And it's really being open and welcoming to anything as it needs to process through.
Yeah.
But it's like, on the cold grief side, I have a family member who, she's passed away also, but like her parents had, her father had died, I don't know, 20, 30 years before. And still, every time she brought him up, she would start crying. She was still every day holding on to, if only I had done something different, if only this had been, if the situation was different, if only he was still here. That sort of thing it's that fourth, fifth fetter really locking into imagining how things could be different, and then making this moment somehow insufficient or much worse than it's thought that it could be. And it's a very unproductive self-abusing kind of grief, because you're always putting yourself in a position that it's never going to be like that. And there might be some,
it just makes me think it's also really interesting to look into. So what is it you are avoiding?
Avoiding from it or deriving from it.
That's the next one. The first thing is what is it you're avoiding? If you have that story about the one that got away, and you have grief about a relationship that has ended, what is it you are avoiding in having that story? So you're avoiding putting yourself out there. So what is it you are actually gaining from this story, that you don't have to be hurt again? You don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have to do any of those things by locking yourself into an underlying belief and a story. Okay.
All right. Moving on. Let's see. I think there were some. Oh no, it's fine. Not at all. I should specify. Huh? Thank you, Dahlia. Okay.
What did Dahlia say?
You two are so funny. Love this.
I'm happy when it's that tight. When it's on that way. So much better that we're funny.
Yeah, absolutely. So N said, I've been using body yes and body no as my compass for the last little while, and have found a lot of success with it. I feel clear about how to recognize both, but I'm wondering what happens when you feel body no is or might be rooted in fear. How can you tell whether it's a genuine body no versus just fear or aversion? Is the body no still valid in that case, or does fear invalidate it? In other words, does it have to be either a body no or fear, or can both be true at the same time? Any insights would be appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. The body yes, body no. A body no is when I ask, may I set your hair on fire? You have a very, very clear, everybody but
Go
Todd.
ahead, give it a try.
Everybody but Todd have a very clear no. No, absolutely not. There's no debate. There's no back and forth. There's no only if it's to a bit of the brows on the right side. There's no debate about it. It's just like, no, not happening. Not happening. So that's a body no. If you're in a position where you can start to debate about it, then it's no longer a body yes, body no. Then we're in the opinions. And then we're in 4 and 5, where it's weighing back and forth about it, that has an undertone of a second fetter, fear, anger, guilt, and shame, that is deciding what your opinion is, if it's going one way or the other. So that's a 4-5 issue. Yeah. A body yes, body no, super clear.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's really relevant to note, because the body no, I think, is kind of just what you said. I'm sort of reiterating and maybe
go on.
Slightly,
I knew you're good at that.
But thank you. But just that the body no doesn't have that feeling of fear or anxiety behind it in that way. It's like a contracted, definitive, no, I don't want to do that kind of feeling, but it's different from that sort of anxious or fear response that shows up. And so if that is coming up, it's probably not the no. Now it might be, somebody asks you to jump out of an airplane and you feel that, ooh, no, that might also be like, it's just something that genuinely, it's just as crazy as having your hair set on fire. But also it might be because there is some fear of death, some fear of heights, some other thing that's behind it. So noticing in your experience when somebody asks you to do something or when there's an option to do something, what is the actual experience in the body, the emotional experience? Is it really a total resolute nope, shutting that down right now? Or is it a feeling of, oh God, I don't know, this sort of anxious? And then, like you said, if you're imagining yourself jumping out of a plane and then feeling that, that's a much more 4 or 5 sort of an issue rather than just a straight up body no.
What was the example? Was that about job, or what was that?
That was for a Nux one, wasn't it? Yeah, this is the next question. We had 2 like back-to-back questions about body yes, no. Did you want to go on to the next one and then expand?
Because I think
because the next one was from YouTube. George asked on YouTube, I have a question relating to the desire versus need, a little similar to what the person in the other comment posted. This has to do with something that seems like whether to follow what seems like inherent predispositions or talents and also preferences, the body yes or no. Can one follow the body yes or no in, say, a career path and not create an attachment out of it? So that I try to go for the career which feels in agreement with what comes easily to me, creative stuff and music, instead of sticking forever to a job that is right here and now, but feels like a dead end. I mean, I can accept the situation in which it doesn't work out and be okay with that. But there's a very strong alignment with music and a pretty strong foundation to build upon, like years of dabbling on the side, much curiosity, etc., and only a functional relationship to the one here. Any comments? It might sound a little silly to ask such a question, but I don't want to perpetuate suffering or false hope and striving on one hand, and on the other, to gaslight myself into accepting just anything when the body or intuition or whatever there is saying that what it's been saying for years now. I feel strange asking this because it's ultimately a story and ego thing, right? I want to clarify this issue for myself. I will watch the videos and do the exercises, but I'd still be super grateful for any comment. I saw the video on Angelo's YouTube profile called An Artist Awakens, and I was like, wait, what? Someone still gets to identify like that after an awakening? Oh God, I'm seeing that there's such victimhood in what I'm saying, actually, and a lot of grief and anger. That's something to work with. Probably Fetter 2 stuff, even Fetter 1 expectations, but that feels like a judgment. Sorry if a bit chaotic. I would dearly appreciate any feedback. If this clarifies for me once I've watched the video, we'll do it right now. I'll delete the comment. But the comment stands, so.
Yeah, the comment stands, and it's really, really good question.
Yeah.
So there are so many answers to it.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to say is that what we just talked about, that a body yes and a body no, is very clear. It's very, very clear. It's like if I ask you, do you want to work at Trader Joe's? And you go yes, or you go no. Do you want to work at a nursery with 3-year-old kids? It's either a yes or no. It's very, very clear. And you know if you want to do it or if you don't want to do it. Do you want to work with music? Yes or no. Do you want to be a painter? Yes or no. And when you had that feeling that, well, wait, what? Somebody can identify as an artist? Well, if Angelo had made a video with a car mechanic becomes awake, or being a car mechanic after being awake, you wouldn't have had the same thoughts about, wait, what? Somebody can identify as a car mechanic? You wouldn't have had that. It's only because for you, the music has a certain tonation. It has a certain importance that is to you. And that is where it starts to get muddy, just like we talked about in the previous question.
Yeah, and perhaps there's also an identification as a musician or as a creative type. And so there can be that egoic gratification or that feeling of like, what do you derive out of it? How does it improve your self-image to see yourself as a creative person or a musician or something like that? Then that's something to look into, because it is possible to be completely creative after awakening, to have all sorts of creative pursuits and interests and passions, and that's all lovely and wonderful. It's a matter of the attachment to and the identification to the one who is doing it, to the outcome of what is being done, to all of those thought processes that once would have been so self-referential and potentially disruptive. Now, can it just be this free outflowing of creativity that is less burdened by any judgments that you have towards it, any feelings that things need to be a certain way for it to be okay, or that you have to present it in a certain way, or that it's all about making some sort of plan that you have set about in the future, that I'm going to get this gig and that's going to lead to this, and then it's going to lead to a record or an album, and yeah, all of those things, that like, this is my plan for 30-year dominance of the music industry. Like, how is it that this is actually showing up for you? If you're simply drawn to music and the feeling of just that body yes when it comes to playing the music and making music is there, by all means, go for it. Does that mean, though, that you have to then quit your job and just focus on that? Well, maybe not. There's a difference between, again, taking a sign of where this feels right to me right now to do it, and then making an assumption based off of that this feels right now, that it's going to be the thing that's going to feel right for the next 10 years, and that this is the absolute direction I should go. There is a practical level of, again, speaking on the relative terms of just being in the world, of being able to pay your bills and doing all of that stuff. So if the job that you're in, you don't know, first of all, where that one is going to go. It might not be creatively fulfilling, and again, I don't know you, and so I don't know exactly what your options are going forward, but it's relevant to
there's no job that's a dead-end job.
No.
We do not know what a dead-end job is, because there is no such thing. You do not know who you're going to meet, even though you're sitting in the basement, the only person in the mail room. It cannot be a dead-end job. You don't know what insight you're going to have in that basement, in that mail room, all by yourself.
Yeah.
So we cannot even classify any jobs as a dead-end job. They do not exist.
No. And it might be one of those things where what's that guy who, I'm not a fan of the song, but he was like, he had but he had some job, and he took that old song that's now public domain. And My Little Boo thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
oh God, never mind.
Sorry, but from the story that I heard, it was basically, he said, like, he made this one song, and then it became like such a hit. He ended up going on tour, like in Europe or something, off of it, and then called from there to say that he was never coming back to his job again. Maybe that was a good idea. I don't know. I don't know if he's had like a single song after that. I actually have no idea what his professional trajectory has been, but the point being that you don't know if the what you think is a dead end job now is either going to lead to some profound insight or benefit or something going forward, or if it's simply going to give you the financial freedom to be able to pursue the other stuff in earnest until something becomes of that. But ultimately, where we are saying you is just to really honor the body yes feeling, but not to make a whole bunch of assumptions based on it and expectations based on it, and to create a whole thought pattern beyond it feels right in this moment to do this thing, because that's the only thing it can really refer to, is where you are right now in this instant. It's not telling you that this is the right thing because it's going to pay off in 30 years. It's saying, like, right now, this is the thing to do, and you don't need to know why that's the case. Our minds like to put on all of these stories that, oh, I'm being drawn to play guitar today. That's probably because I'm going to like write some hit song that's going to make me famous, or that it's going to be like, I'm going to practice this one thing and concoct this whole storyline of somebody coming in and hearing you, and blah, blah, blah. All of that is nonsense. We don't know what it's going to come out of it. It might just be that for some reason it feels really good to play guitar in this moment. End of story.
Mm.
and the next minute you go back to work. So taking it with for what it's worth, but not making it into another whole personal narrative that also is at the same time reinforcing the identity of the one who is going to have this perfect layout of a life going forward, or that this is definitely going to lead to this potential trajectory of a career in the arts. It's being used in that way as a very identifying, identity bolstering kind of a belief. And so can you set that aside and just simply be with, this feels right now, so I'm doing it right now. And in the next moment, if it doesn't feel right anymore, I'm going to do the thing that does feel right. And just live from that moment to moment movement. And there does seem to be a consistency with the way that we are, that for the most part, we don't find like, I'm really interested in plants right now, and then in 5 minutes I'm really interested in music, and in the next 10 minutes I'm really interested in geography, and like I'm just going to bounce back and forth for the next 30 years being interested in one thing after another. I know, but you're consistent in all those things.
I'm consistent in all of it. Yeah.
You're consistent. So it's like the question is, are you going to have one of those every 10 minutes for the next 30 years? Probably not. There are some things that are going to keep coming around. And if you get into that pattern of really honoring what feels right now and doing that thing, as opposed to, well, I've set aside this time, I really should be doing this thing. I only get, 2 days off of work. I really need to force myself to do this creative project, even though my heart is not in it at all. This is the only time I have to do it, so I got to do it. If you're not living life from that kind of forcefulness, then you have much more opportunity for things to just open up, and for to be a flowing casualness and ease, even when you're doing things like your job and other pursuits, which may not seem like they have a definitive reason for you to be doing them. No desired outcome at the end of it. It's so much freer and nicer to live a life that way, even if it doesn't grant you a mansion and some material success, or however you define success.
Yeah. I was just sitting and thinking of that this was a really good example of our bubble of reality, because you immediately assumed that George is playing guitar.
Well, I was just using
he could be playing kazoo or triangle. He might be pursuing a triangle career.
Every musician plays guitar, though. It's just the way it is.
Even the ones on kazoos.
Exactly. It's the universal instrument. And if they don't play it, they want to play it.
And then I just want to circle back to you referencing boothing.
What? Boothing. I thought,
you're a little boothing.
Please, see, we didn't need to go there with it.
But we did. We went there. You went there.
I barely said the name. It was just
in my mind. I could hear it. You're a little boothing.
Oh God, no.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna remind you all day, babe.
Speaking of toxic songs, right? If you ever want to, going back into the wokeness of the previous talk, read the lyrics of that song. They're atrocious. It's basically like the girl is with her boyfriend and he's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm still going to pursue you anyway, because my needs are way better than, they're much above yours and the guy that you're with.
Yeah.
It's all about me. So Ego is really a disgusting song. So yeah, go. Don't listen to it.
No. Oh, I want George on his kazoo and triangle. Okay, next question. Anything there?
Let's see. Jahara said, it's harder to feel body yes or no when you haven't seen through Fetter 1 because you're still so seduced by thoughts and beliefs. Yeah, absolutely true.
Yes, absolutely.
Completely true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Super good point.
There's such a belief in what the truth is, and it feels so true what I feel. I can feel it in my body, and whatever thought I have is connected with a feeling, which means it's extra true. So Jahara, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. It is easier when you no longer see neither thought or feeling or emotion as important or relevant at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a cloud.
Okay. Do said, Hello, Todd and Prunella.
Hello.
Hello. I've been working with the Fetters for almost a year now, and it seemed I was experiencing a level of clarity, or maybe a dissolving of the victim story I had become so vested in. Recently, a sensation from my past I had completely forgotten about came back. I'm not sure how to explain it, except to say I feel like I'm going to crawl out of my skin. It happens at night when I'm lying in bed and I try to rest or sit still. This intense restlessness comes over me. I cannot stop moving or twitching. I try to focus on my breathing and or the sensation itself, but it's so intense it feels like I'm going to implode if I don't move even a little. Moving or twitching is the only thing that keeps it at bay. It's so much stronger than anything I've encountered so far, and I have no idea where it originated or why it's back. Not sure how to work with this one.
No, I get that. Yeah, welcome to Awakening 2.0. Whenever we talk about awakening, we have a very cerebral relationship with it. It's very much about, letting go of thoughts, looking into thoughts, feeling into thoughts, and all of that. In the 2.0 version is when you start to notice that there's something south of the chin, that there's also a body connected to it. And all awakening needs to be embodied. You cannot become awake without embodying all this. And that is what your body is telling you right now. That twitching, shaking that you feel, that the restlessness and the energy that you have in your body, that is your body that needs to express it. I can recommend you to go for a run, go for a walk during the day, shake as much as you can, do TRE, use the embodiment. We have the 12 exercises on the YouTube channel that I can recommend you to do daily. There's also some really good comments underneath for people that have done it over longer time, and the response in the body when you start to embody all these things and shake it out and starting to feel what the body move in the way that the body needs you to move without making a story about it, but just allowing to move the way that the body needs to move. It is super profound. And you had a TRE session yesterday with Kate.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I don't know how many other people, if we have anybody else who does
TRE in the community
or guides TRE here. But I had never done an actual guided session with anybody with TRE before. I had only done some little videos that were online, and it was a really wonderful session. So if I was just going to give her a plug, if anybody is interested in really, really great intuitive guided TRE sessions, Kate Alvo, ALVO, you can go to katealvo.com. We're not affiliated.
We're not affiliated
not sponsored or
anything,
but just it was a really good session. And again, it was the first one that I've had one-to-one, but it was really, really good. So I just wanted to
and what it basically is both with TRE and with the embodiment exercises that we do, is basically allowing the body to release all the things that are in the body. And like you're saying, that you don't know what it's about. There's no stories about it. Keep it like that. You don't need to know what it's all about. You just do what the body needs to do. And then when the body stops doing it, then it's done. And then you don't feel restless anymore. But when you have that restlessness, that like ants in your legs, it is because there is a surplus of energy that needs to be let out, and you can meet that need with different exercises. Yep.
I think that was really good.
Oh, it's a very quick one.
That was, well, yeah, but I think
we should mix politics into it so it can be a bit longer.
Yeah. It really pads things out.
It really does. Yeah.
Everybody loves that too.
Everybody loves it.
Really,
everybody loves it.
Maureen said, today for the first time I experienced body tremors while doing a machine at the gym. It's funny how they tend to come in like themes.
I just want to say that Maureen was at the retreat, and she has the retreat program that we had for the embodiment retreat, where there was exercises for the gym. And that is what she's talking about.
Yes. I experienced body tremors while doing a machine at the gym. Leg extension, lowest weight, 20 pounds. Eye circles and mantra. I stand up for myself. Tremors would continue as long as I was holding the position. I tired and stopped before the tremors had ceased, stretched, and went home to an appointment. Would it be preferable to take a break if needed and return to the machine, continuing as long as tremors remain?
I would say that it's very, very individual. It's very individual, and you really need to breathe and feel into the body. If the body wants you to sit longer or repeat it or have a break or lie in fetal position or read a book, go home, come back to the gym, whatever the body needs you to do, just do that. Just do that. And for example, if you have been to the gym and you come home and you feel, I would like to do a bit more, you can do the leg extension at home and then just hold it in the position where you start to feel the tremors. And then you close your eyes, do the eye circles, and go back into it again. So it's impossible to give a standard answer for that because it's individual. And one day it's one thing, and another day it's another thing. So it's very much about you breathing, feeling into the body, and meeting the needs of the body. There's something that the body needs to experience and express, and then we just do that.
Really good. All right, we're in rapid fire mode. Okay, Raven asked, could you speak about how to break inertia, especially as it deals with habits and or addictions, and any specific videos in the curriculum you recommend for this? In gratitude. So
you talk.
Well,
it's the word inertia where I'm stopping. So if you start, then I can comment on you.
It's a really interesting question because I know what you're getting at, and seems to be an idea of inertia in terms of our behavioral patterns. Habits and addiction seem to be one of the more obvious signs of that, but I also question actually whether the inertia really exists. We have behavioral patterns.
Could you just explain inertia?
Sure. So inertia is like in physics, it's like the idea that a ball rolling downhill is going to continue gaining momentum and continue rolling until something gets in the way to stop it.
So it has like a self-perpetuating momentum. Yeah, that's a belief.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So there is a perhaps a familiar behavioral pattern that you can pick up on, that every time I eat dinner, I want a cigarette afterwards. Every time I'm go drive by a Starbucks, I have to stop and get a coffee.
Every time Janice enters the office, I need to kick her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. As we all do.
As we all do.
But things like that, where it feels like every time I do this thing, I want this thing or I need this thing, and it feels like it has a certain inertia to it because we're not effectively well, for one thing, we're pattern seeking creatures, so we recognize that every time I'm in this situation, I have this thing or I want this thing, and we do develop the like classical conditioning of every time we eat, and we have certain routines that we do when we eat or things that we like with it, or every time I sit down to read a book, I have to have a cup of tea next to me. And it's like, we have that thing where I'm going to read a book and all of a sudden I get a craving for tea. I have to have this thing. And there's an assumption there that there is a real connection or a real link that just needs to be investigated into. So even when it comes to habits and seeming addictions, it's really, really important, like we say all the time, to get into the body and find out what is actually happening in that moment when the seeming addiction is craved, when the behavior wants to happen. What are you actually feeling? Is there something where in this moment this is being used as a diversion, where you're feeling something that is not comfortable and I feel like I need to have this thing to make me feel better? For instance, say you have a tendency to like overeat the meal and then you have to have some sort of dessert afterwards, that ice cream or something that makes you feel less full afterwards. It makes you feel less bloated. Well, notice, were you feeling uncomfortable before the craving to get the ice cream happened? And that you're hoping to use that ice cream as a way to alleviate feeling this discomfort now. Do
you overeat so you can eat the ice cream?
That's also a good possibility. So it's investigating what is happening. Is it every time you have a thought about your job, you then have to go and get high, or you have to go
Do you need a glass
run
of
a
red wine every
yeah,
time you come home
exactly.
from work?
Yeah, exactly. Or go for a run or something, like, because they can also be what we take to be healthy habits can also be diversions from feeling things that we otherwise don't really want to feel. Or is it an associated thing where, I don't know, if I sit down with that book and I don't have the coffee or don't have the tea, something just feels wrong. Well, what is that wrong feeling in the body? What actually feels like it's a pull or a call to do something? What is that tea really providing for you? Are you really thirsty? Does it really have to do with that? Can you just go get a drink of water and it's not, is that going to fill the same void that this tea seems to be filling? Get really really interested and investigate your experience in a way that starts to shine a light on why the behaviors seem to be necessary that are happening. If there's a pull to avoid feeling something, or there's a pull to feel something that you're not currently feeling right now, and see which way this is moving for you.
Yeah,
Were you going to jump
yeah,
in?
no, I'm just sitting and thinking of that. What you started by saying, that inertia is not a thing.
Yeah.
It's inertia is not a thing. If you were a Martian that just landed here on Earth and you had a meal, you wouldn't think of having ice cream. Or if you saw a book, you wouldn't think of um, drinking tea. Or if it's raining outside, you wouldn't think of having a cup of cocoa. It's like that. If you're a Martian, those reactions wouldn't be there. So who taught you that?
Mhm.
If nobody had ever taught you that that is what we do, then you wouldn't be doing it. So it's also an idea to look at, where does it come from? What is it that you were entrained with? This is how it is. This is how we do. Because a lot of things we have taken on as a truth, even though the one that taught us that to be true, they had a foundational belief in this being important, but we just copied that.
Mhm.
So we don't have the belief in it, but we just copied whatever they did.
Yeah.
And so it's more like just a copy paste that we sit in. It's not really an addiction. It's more like, oh, that's what we do. When I get sad, I eat an ice cream. Mom gave you an ice cream because she couldn't deal with you being sad, but you just have a pattern of eating an ice cream when you get sad. It's not really any deeper than
Yeah.
that. So sometimes it's also helpful to follow the trail
Mm.
and see if you're just a product of that.
Yeah.
And the real problem is actually in another generation. It's not in
Yeah.
you. It's in the one that taught you that this is how we do.
Yeah. And notice, in any given moment, there isn't really a ball of ice cream rolling down a hill that you have to
Oh,
try to stop. I know that would be delicious, though. Love to get hit by a giant ball of rolling ice cream.
Careful what you wish for. You're going skiing.
No, but it's not really a thing. There's not really this inertia of that ice cream. In any given moment of craving or seeming craving, there is one experience that is happening right now that can be looked into and felt and dealt with. And that is it. Maybe in 5 minutes or in 5 weeks, you will have another experience where you crave ice cream again. And then again, it's one new, fresh experience to be looked into and felt into, and not something that necessarily has to be taken as this same ball of ice cream rolling down the hill. It's one event and then one event and then one event. And if we break it down, because we have that idea, there's like it becomes like a self-defeating kind of idea that, well, okay, I could sit with one time of wanting ice cream and I can probably handle that. But if I consider all the times that I've given into eating ice cream in the past, and I put together a narrative that is this huge inertia of wanting ice cream, and that every time for the rest of my life I'm going to have a craving, I'm going to have to try to sit with that craving and not eat ice cream, that is unfathomable. I can't do that. That's this idea that you're putting, it's not here. It doesn't exist. There's some pattern of ideas about what has happened in the past, and there's an imagination of what might happen in the future. None of it is real. Come to this one moment where there's a sensation in the body and some sort of pull that seems to be calling out for ice cream. And then notice if, we're really going on the ice cream train, even though you haven't said that that's like a thing for you, but
Poor Raven.
we'll pretend that you have a real thing for ice cream right now. If you're craving ice cream in this moment, find out how it is that you even know that you are craving ice cream.
Mm.
Do you have a mental image in your mind of a bowl of ice cream? Are you actually tasting for a brief flash in your mouth the taste of that ice cream? Are you feeling a sensation in the body, like in the torso, that seems to be some sort of buzzing, pulling, almost like a funnel coming out or something coming out of the chest, like pulling you towards the freezer? Feel the raw sensation without making it into anything. See that you saw an image of ice cream, that you taste for a moment the flavor of ice cream. And that all of these things are being piled completely secondarily into a thought that, ooh, that must mean that I want ice cream. I need ice cream. Do you? Is that really what that means? Or did you just simply have the mind popping up thought that seemed to be related to ice cream? And, one of the reasons why it does this, right? We talk about the craving as being a way to keep us from having to feel something that's in this moment. But the craving itself does not exist. What exists are defense mechanisms to keep us from experiencing. And so noticing how that's actually happening is really relevant. The mind is basically here to protect us from feeling bad in any way. It does its best. It fails often at the time and sometimes makes things worse, but it's trying. If you're feeling sad, using your example, you're sitting here, you're sitting on the couch, you're feeling sad. The mind knows in the past, ice cream felt really good when I was sad. It gave me a boost. That was good. So the mind is effectively popping up. This sensation is here. Sadness is here. There's an association that this sensation, oh, maybe this will distract you. Maybe this will be good. It's worked in the past. So boop, here's a little advertisement for ice cream. The taste that reflects in the taste buds where you get like, oh, I've seen that before. I know what that tastes like. Boop, quick little flash of taste in the mouth of that is what that ice cream tasted like. Then you are basically buying into that advertising, and you're then maybe getting up to go and get that ice cream because it feels like that advertisement wasn't just some third party trying to promote to your needs. This is my thought because this is me. If we're still having that first Feder identification, it's happening in my head. So it's clearly me who wants that ice cream and must then fulfill it. But if you were sitting on the couch feeling sad and a commercial for an ice cream popped up on the screen, it might have some of that effect, but you would recognize that that's just a company that is trying to get your money. They're just playing to your weaknesses and
But the mind is
insecurities to get
doing the
that.
same thing all the time.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it feels personal, and you're less likely to question it when it's coming from the mind.
It's also why I keep saying that really, really slowing down and zooming in, because you have a million thoughts all the time, and you're sitting in the sofa and you're being sad, and then a mind advertising about a wheelbarrow comes up, and a mind advertising about a caddy cushion comes up, and the mind advertising about ice cream comes up, and you just grab onto the one that has a sensory experience.
Yeah.
The wheelbarrow and the caddy cushion didn't have that, but
Sorry, a caddy cushion?
Yeah, a cat has a little cushion to lie on.
Caddy cushion?
Yeah,
is that like a term?
No,
Oh,
might not be wheelbarrow.
I mean, I
right?
like it. Yeah, wheelbarrow totally is, but
no,
I like caddy cushion. I've just never heard of that
The
before.
one I see in my mind is like a pink silky one,
Yeah,
and you have like a little diva of a cat on it.
Yeah, totally.
One of Lila's diva cats.
Yeah.
Sorry if I offended you with a diva
with
cat.
a diva cat.
No, but my shoulder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But what I mean is that there's just those million of thoughts coming up, and we pick the one that seems to give the most entertainment. And the wheelbarrow and the caddy cushion didn't do it, but the ice cream does. And it's the same all the time, all during the day. You have millions of thoughts, and then they're none of them are interesting. And suddenly there's one that seems to give the most entertainment, and that's the one we're running with. And it's also why what your hero was pointing out before, that when you're no longer identifying with thoughts and no longer identifying with feeling and emotions, all of those mind advertisement that comes up, they are equal. they're equally boring or equally non-relevant. So you're not attaching yourself or identifying with any of them. Oh, an ice cream is just as interesting as a wheelbarrow. You know, it doesn't have any, there's nothing more in it.
Exactly.
Did we just get a thank you?
Grace, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So sweet.
Thank you so much. It's so sweet. We are so super grateful for all donations that come our way. Thank you very much.
Oh, and Maureen asked, thanks, but how to do the leg extension at home?
Oh, if you mean for the front, you sit on your table at the end of your table, just like you do at the gym, and then you very you flex your foot.
Sorry, sitting on a table, or do you mean on a couch or a chair?
No, on a table.
Oh, okay.
So your legs are hanging over the edge of the table and not touching the floor.
Okay.
And then you flex your feet, and then you, with force, as if somebody's standing and pushing down your leg, you slowly straighten your leg up, and with force, as if somebody is pushing your leg up, you very slowly bend your leg back, and you take one leg at a time. And I can recommend you doing 10 with one thigh and 10 with the other thigh. If you can do 10, if you can do 2, you do 2.
Amazing.
And if it's the other one where it's a leg curl, where you're lying on your stomach, you can lie on your bed or the floor or anywhere, and then you do the same thing. Flex your foot, and then you very slowly bend the leg up as if somebody's pushing and pulling the other way.
Nice. All right. That was the last question on that.
Really? That was it?
That was it. We actually got through them.
Oh, wow.
Even with all
the political stuff.
Political diversion.
Yeah. I just want to say that we have no political affiliations. We are not sponsored by anyone. We really do not care that much about any of the underlying beliefs of any of it. It's interesting to look into.
It's a super fascinating time.
It's really fascinating. And especially as a European to be here, because it's so different because of that utterly broken system here.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that people, they're more about party than about country.
Absolutely.
It's really weird, really odd. But it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah, it's a time of we talk about identification, but we can really see identification happening on grand scales right now everywhere.
On both sides.
Exactly.
Again, we're not sitting and being red or blue or anything here. We're just noticing.
Super fascinating to observe everybody's behavior at this time. Yeah. And
if you're in America, vote.
Yes.
Come on, guys. We have a 93% voting rate in Denmark. Come on, guys, you can do better.
We have 42% right here.
You can do better. You have to vote. You have to vote. So vote.
Civic duty and all.
Civic duty.
Yeah.
Social responsibility. You have to vote.
Is that it?
I think so.
I think so.
Remember, next time we meet is going to be on Tuesday for the inquiry group.
Ironically, voting day, isn't it? Is it November 5th already?
No, it can't be.
What day?
It can't be. It hasn't been Halloween yet.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, right.
No,
my
it's
bad.
not.
Oh, jeez.
Next time we meet on Tuesday, it's on Tuesday, and it's for the inquiry group, and the link is going to be here on the channel. It's going to be it is already in the Discord thread, and I'm also going to post it in the member area, so you have it. Just remember that Europe goes back to winter time on Sunday. I know Australia hasn't done it yet, and the US hasn't done it yet, but for everybody in Europe and in the UK, remember that your time is different. Ours is not. So we have not changed. So it's still 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Time. Don't wait. It's 12 o'clock Eastern Time, like today. 12 o'clock Eastern Time. For Europe, it's going to be 5 o'clock. For the UK, it's going to be 4 o'clock. So just notice that on Tuesday, you guys have winter time. We do not. We do not.
Yes.
It's silly that we don't change all over the world at the same time.
It would be super convenient.
Australia could go into their summertime.
Yeah, it would be super convenient.
It would be.
It's going to be even screwier if we ever actually make it so we don't change at all.
No, it would just be the same.
Yeah, but other people will, and I mean America, not we as a as a world, but here.
No, it's the same. It would be the same. Europe is changing, we're not.
Yeah, I know, but there would be no point where we're back to the same kind of normalcy of where we're both have reallocated. It would be half the year we are.
But it would be less because now we are changing. They're changing now, and we're not.
Yeah.
The week after we are changing, and they have changed.
Yeah,
so
true.
It's like two times more confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go for a walk?
Yes.
I would like to go for a walk.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Everyone.
It has been absolutely wonderful. See you on Tuesday.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye. Do you look up? I haven't got my glasses on. I can't see anything.
I can see it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.